Hello everyone, my name is Akorita, and we are here to discuss on our 4th annual charity event, which is based around mental health for this year. I started a charitable platform 2015 to help and support different charities for different causes, and to also raise awareness and raise funds for them. And for the 4th year, we started looking at mental health, and through that process, we discovered there was more to mental health in Nigeria that people were not aware of. And we came across a documentary done by BBC, and I thought it would be a good place to start by watching this documentary and having a discussion based around it, because a lot of the people in most African countries, especially in Nigeria where I'm from, these things are practiced back home, where mentally ill people are being chained to trees, they're being chained to pillars or stones, and that's no way a human being who's got an illness should be treated. And I think by talking about this and creating this awareness, we can help educate, even if it's one person, or help one person along the line of we're trying to create this awareness. So today I'm here with all of my friends who's been part of this part of the foundation that we've created in raising awareness, and this year we picked mental health as our subject for the year. And on that note, we're going to watch a documentary by BBC on what goes on in some of these African countries where mentally ill people are being chained. And after watching that, we're going to have a discussion based around it, and we're also going to talk about what solutions we can provide in helping people out there as well who are suffering from this illness and being treated the way they are being treated. Basically, we just want to tell people that there is a different way, to deal with people who are mentally ill, and tying them to a post or a pillar is more or less like the straight jacket. In the UK they have a straight jacket. Back in Africa, it's more like you're being chained to a tree or to a pillar or a post, and sometimes they end up being there for from anything between from 6 weeks, a year. Sometimes you find them 4 years still on the same spot. So we're trying as much as we can to raise awareness around that, and then see what solutions we can provide in moving forward. So we're going to watch a video and then later on have a discussion around that topic.
Many of these people have mental illnesses. Their desperate families have left them here because they have nowhere else to turn. Daily prayers are their only treatment. This prayer center is one of the largest in Togo, and one of many across West Africa. This evangelical pastor says he's doing God's work here.
Si quelqu'un est malade, comme un trouble mentaux, on n'a qu'à venir chez nous et on va prier pour eux. Par la grâce de Dieu, il va trouver la guérison.
Bono used to run a successful tire repair business, but in the 1980s it went under and he fell into depression.
J'ai tellement perdu que j'ai failli me suicider. J'ai commencé à mener une vie très misérable.
He realized that in West Africa, most people with mental illnesses get no treatment. He started St. Camille to provide care to anyone who needed it. Numonvi's center has become one of the largest in Togo. He told us patients don't pay for treatment, but families sometimes give gifts when they're healed. He also runs prayer gatherings that attract thousands of people who donate to his church. He took us behind the prayer hall, where people with mental illnesses are kept. There are 153 men and women here. Patients stay for weeks, months, even years, often without any diagnosis.
So we're going to start with Al, because Al, you know what we've been trying to do with the foundation. I think we're going to revert to the original plan of trying to focus on one, have a specific. So we talked about maybe looking out for the women because they're most vulnerable. We'll try that for a couple of months and see how that works, how we can help, even if it means helping one person.
Yes.
So we stay focused on women and zoning on that. So I think we wrote the first piece together on what the objectives are and the whys and how we're going to fund it and stuff like that. So if you just give a brief of that.
Certainly, yes. So my name is Al O'Connor, and we have been watching Caroline's, myself and Dan have been watching Caroline's sessions, Facebook Live sessions, since they started, pretty much. I was brought up in Ireland. I myself suffer from depression and have done for about 30 years now. I guess when I think back to when I started to take medication, it was about 20 years ago. In the UK. At that time, there was still a lot of good information around and support. I'd always felt that it was something that I was kind of strange, and it was just me. But it was very good to know that I wasn't alone, and that the feelings that I was having were quite common. I think as we went through the sessions, Caroline, and as people joined, one of the things that kind of stuck out for me was that people weren't aware. They weren't aware of what was happening to them or to their loved ones. They didn't really have the information. GPs weren't geared up just to say, "Come in and sit down. And let me see what is wrong." So a lot of the discussions that we had was, if only we had people had more information. And just to break down some of the walls, so people are more enlightened, I guess, about mental illness. That it's not a taboo subject. It doesn't always mean that you have to go to the pastor. You're not crazy, and that there are things that you can do for yourself, and support for the family and people and friends that are also involved. Naturally, will get involved in these situations. So we talked about what we could do in terms of from here in the UK to try and raise awareness and to try and help. Starting in Nigeria, but I guess wider, maybe longer term in Africa. But one of the key things was around that awareness campaigns and just trying to. We thought if we could produce some information for a project, for an agency, for a small charity, for people who are trying to do some good work in Nigeria in this area, whatever resources that they do have, naturally they will want to channel that into treatments or transport for the people. So they can't decide, well, let me go and produce a pamphlet, let me produce a leaflet, let me put a website up, because they will feel that, well, that's money that I could probably use to directly help somebody. So Caroline, we were talking around, could we from the UK start to get involved in some of those things and run projects from the UK for those agencies where we might do a campaign over a period of time. And we can target GPs, we can, to try and give them information. We can have leaflets, websites, maybe we could get celebrities involved in terms of trying to raise the awareness of the problem across Nigeria. So this is what we're thinking, that, we have a lot, as a group, we have a lot of skills, we have some internet skills, writing skills, people have business skills, etc., that we could run these things as projects to try and raise awareness across Nigeria. So you mentioned, one of the things was we were thinking, well, we don't want to be too broad, because then we don't have any impact in any area. So what should we focus on, at least initially, when we start the foundation, as we started to ramp up? So we talked about whether we would think about women, for example, who are in vulnerable positions because they are maybe on the street and are probably more vulnerable, you would think, than maybe a man might be. Is that something that we should look at, or should it be young people? So just trying to pick that kind of target group to focus on initially, so we can have some sort of an impact on. So I think that's where we are as a group, really, is just trying to take those next steps to see how can we now start to do something practical. And try and make a difference on the ground. So we thought we talked about maybe starting, relatively small. We don't want to be too ambitious, and then bite off more than we can chew as a group. We want to start small and be successful, and then review where we are, every 6 months as a group and say, okay, are we doing the right thing? Is there other things that we should be doing? So I think we're at the start of that journey now, I think, Caroline.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So I think for the foundation, we did some work, a few of us, just to try and, in a fairly short kind of description of what we would be in terms of what the objectives would be and the types of things that we would get involved in. So I think that's probably the next thing is just to see if we can just firm up on that and make sure that we've all agreed that we have a common understanding of what we're trying to do, and we have a common objective, and then we can start to do some practical work and start to reach out.
And I'll just add, it was through those Facebook conversations that we started. I think we did about 40 or 40 something on Facebook conversation of getting different individuals involved in it, some which were professionals and some were just like personal experiences, and we had an amazing response to it, and through the research of all the conversation that we've been having, this is one of the videos that came up, and I thought it would be a good idea to shed even more light, because any awareness is good awareness as far as I see it. So it would be good to also show more on this video that we've just watched and share it around and see what we can do because I know these things still exist because I grew up seeing people being tied up and seeing people tied up in numbers and in lines and they use them to parade and beg for money. So it does exist, and we need to see how we can help anyone in such a situation, and that is why we're also trying to form this foundation moving forward. Watching the video, I would ask Brian, because you've been with us from day one, what is your thoughts so far after seeing that video?
Well, to be honest, I never realised that's the thing, but also it's quite an eye-opener for me. It opens up lots of different thoughts and opinions. You can understand that families probably don't know what to do. They don't have access to the right medical resources, and so they turn to the religious. Or look for a religious solution, which isn't there. I'm sure there's lots of people around the table that are religious. I'm not. There's no religious cure for this. This is purely, down to sort of a medical path, and it just doesn't exist. And that is a huge eye-opener. This is the type of thing that I thought died out in the
a long time ago.
Or whatever. But to see this happening in the 21st century, it's incredible. It's absolutely incredible. And these people are incredibly sick. They're not getting the right medication, and they're just getting worse and worse. So to me, it was stunning. It absolutely was stunning.
Thanks for that input. I'm going to go to Nina. If you would introduce yourself and just say how you become a part of this project as well, that would be great. And just tell us a little bit also about your thoughts on the video that we've just watched. Thanks.
Hi, my name is Nina, and I got involved with the project through Facebook Live. With day posts. I remember because I never forget the number. So we just talked a bit on Facebook during the doors of the incident that happened. But having looked at this video, it's very shocking. Obviously, I was a bit teary because there's something that's said, which is true. Seeing a human being tied down is like seeing the whole universe being tied down, and that's exactly what it is. Like Brian said, these people are sick. I mean, yes, I love God. Yes, I believe in Jesus, but I personally do not think that is a way forward of doing anything. When my daughter went through it, yes, I had members in the family who even put it down on so many things, but I sent her to the hospital. I sent her to the private hospital, and then a few months after she came out, and she's sitting right next to me and doing perfectly well. So there are some times that we have to learn how to keep the balance for me personally, when it comes to spiritual things and reality. You know, we're living in a society where mental health can touch anyone at any time. It could be depression, it could be a loss of family member, anything could happen that just breaks a person down, and you need to go to the doctors and get it treated. That's just my point of view. And these people, like Brian said, they don't know, the family don't know anything about mental health. The government don't care. You know, they said that they only put a little bit into it because they think that it's like, I don't know, it's sad. I don't know. Yeah.
Thanks for that, Nina. Thank you so much. I'm going to go to Nancy. And Nancy, I would like you to introduce yourself and just tell us a little bit, you know, how you also got involved and what part you'll be playing.
Interesting. Okay, so my name is Nancy, and I came in contact with Carol, of course, because of our passion for this mental illness thing, and I'm crazy about that as well because growing up in Africa, I mean, looking at the video, growing up in Africa, these things that I was exposed to. I was a young child. I used to see a lot of people being chained, you know, thinking that their situation were unreversible, like they were mad, like completely gone, you know. So I saw that, and the mentality at the time was like there was no hope for these people. But being in the world today, thank God for the mental illness awareness. We've been exposed to the fact that it shouldn't be. I mean, we've seen people who are normal, like who were worse off, but they are back to their normal state because of the way it's been managed. They now found different ways of dealing with it. And as far as I'm concerned, I think creating that awareness in Africa and getting our people to understand that, listen, this can be managed, this can be dealt with, we can get these people back to their normal is actually where I am very passionate about. And I personally have been in situations where I would have ended up like with that mental illness, a different situation. But first and foremost, I think I would thank my friends and family around, because you get to a point as a human being where you have nobody to talk to. And this is where it can start. You find yourself in that where nobody cares about you or nobody is there to talk to you, and you know you can actually gradually be drawn into that deep bit of mental illness, basically, and this is where it starts. So being a part of this project is actually I think it's my passion, really, because I want to see us making that awareness, actually drawing up the knowledge to the people and getting them to understand that this is not as bad as it looks. There's a way to deal with it. So yeah.
Thank you so much. I'm going to go to Suku, who was a little bit, I know it was, because she didn't see the video until yesterday. I didn't even show her all of the video. She didn't see it, no, because I was trying to explain to her what we're trying to do today, but I don't think she quite grasped it until she saw a little bit of the video and she couldn't watch it. And sorry, today we had to make you watch all of the video.
Okay.
Yeah, I'll let you introduce yourself. Yeah, are you okay to do that?
Yeah.
Yeah, and then and tell us also how you got involved, and also give your view on the video that we've just watched as well.
I'm Solomon Mackenzie, basically advocating for abuse and mental health. But I'm sorry again about breaking down when I saw that video, but it's only because mental health illness is a subject I'm very passionate about. Not only because I support people, because I relate. I'm living with PTSD, called post-traumatic stress.
Do you want to drink?
No,
okay,
it's okay. Why am I ruining things?
Have a drink. My African
PTSD, most people know it as flashbacks, but the clinical name is post-traumatic stress disorder. That normally happens to people when you've been in a trauma. In my case, it was abuse, and in some cases, if it's an accident. And that video because I don't see any reasonable excuse of chaining somebody and leaving them there. Whether you're a family, you don't know how to deal with it, but you are my own. I'll keep you in that room. I'll protect you. You don't say they didn't know about mental health, but you know about illness. Okay, if you had another debilitated illness, which is not mental health, suppose you have cancer, suppose you have diabetes, would they have taken them to be put on that spot? Would they have dumped them there? To me, that's no excuse. So the reason I got involved, Caroline approached me as well when she was starting her project. And because I do that on social media and stuff, I was like, hey, he's somebody, because I believe in what she put in. So I was part of that. And then raising awareness. Yes, it's in Africa, we've seen it. But I'm sorry, if it happens here, there are some people who are still in denial. There are some people who are ashamed of being known that have been admitted in a psychiatrist ward. There are some people who, if your loved one is unwell like that, you try and avoid them being out in the open. So it's not only in Africa, but we need to start here where we are. Yes, I'm African. Yes, we're African. But I'm here. That's why I support people. I support globally. And raising awareness is not a one-day thing. It's a continuous. It's a continuous because that's why I even say here, there isn't much awareness on mental health. And the budget of mental health itself isn't much. Because if there was, the billboard and put all, they advertise so many things without that. But in this group, as we are, we gathered because we both have passion for the subject. Not because we relate, but because we've seen what it does to human people.
Thanks for that. I'm going to pass it to the youth, as you mentioned earlier on.
Yeah.
So I'm going to go over to Nicole.
We give them the voice.
Wow. Yeah. So Nicole, I'm going to ask you to introduce yourself. And Nicole has also done something amazing, which she's going to be talking about a little bit later on. So and then just discuss what you've also seen on the video and how you feel about it as well. Thank you.
So my name is Nicole, and how I first knew about the whole organisation that Caroline was doing was through, obviously, a Facebook Live. Unfortunately, I didn't remember which day it was on. But
it's okay, you're forgiven.
But it was, in fact, based on my own personal experience with both depression and almost attempted suicide, which then resulted in me for 2.5, 3 months to be admitted into a mental institute. Now, seeing that video, like, even though I don't have tears rolling down my eyes, but it is still, like, really gripping, because just looking at some of the people there, like, they seem pretty young. And it just reminded me of some of the young people that I was also seeing in the mental institute. And to think that one of those young people would be chained, like, unwillingly, like, the young person at the beginning saying that the chains hurt, like that is just very deep for me. And as somebody who's actually been admitted into these kinds of hospitals, like, you can understand the stigma that they're holding in Africa, like, in general, but not even just Nigeria. And I think it's very sad, because as much as it is down to ignorance, it's also lack of knowledge, lack of understanding of mental health, you see. And honestly, the pastor is not a pastor, in my opinion.
Yeah.
Like, if God was with you, you wouldn't dare think that chaining a human being would be the answer to a mental illness, which is more than just tying them down to an altar. Like, what exactly would that do? If anything, it's going to cause a person to act more crazy.
Yeah, that's true.
I'm going to go over to Rosemary, and if you kindly introduce yourself and also tell us how you you've been there from day one as well, how you got involved in this particular project, and also your view and your thoughts on the video that we've just also watched. That would be great.
Hi, my name is Rosemary Holm, and as Caroline said, I'm one of those that have been alongside her from day one, giving her the moral support on whatever charity she chose to do that year. And this year was no different from last year or the year before that. And, so Caroline, what we're doing, I think we're going to do mental health. So, right, let's do it. And we started this process, and I found myself slowly being sucked into it deeper and deeper and deeper. And during that, initially it started as a 30-day challenge, and it overspilled. Then she pushed it to 35 days, then maybe 38, then 40, then 43. And I was in Nigeria at the time that most of this was going on, and actually, is it 8 o'clock yet? Because I need to go. And I found that the more I listened to the different stories, different people had different things that they would talk about on different nights, and I found myself, just being completely drawn into it, totally eye-opening. There were things that I learned, for example, bipolar. Yeah, you hear bipolar, I've heard about bipolar, but never really stopped
to think.
To actually find out what is it? How does it affect people? How do they live? How do they get by? Is it treatable? All these things. And so Caroline started off on this journey, has unwittingly, affected the rest of us, because I don't even think that we thought we'd be this affected by it. It was going to be another charity for this year, and then probably, we'll do as much as we can and then move on. But going through the process, we've realized that there is such a need when it comes to mental health. Trying to raise awareness, break the stigmas, effect change, like those people being chained to trees, being kept outside and we know how hot it is and humid back home. It must be unbearable to be chained out there with all the insects, no food. It's just heartbreaking, and if we can help anybody, I'm in. 100% I'm in.
Thank you so much for that. I'm going to go over to Chi.
That's too much to come.
It is. It's quite a lot to digest when you actually look at it and think about it. So, Chi, if you just introduce yourself as well and tell us how you got involved. I think we started 2015, wasn't it? We started this charitable platform 2015, and a lot of the people here have been there from 2015 till now. And I think we got into mental health, and we're sort of like hooked. We've been struggling with it than any other past event that we've done because of how it's affected each and every one of us. And the more we dug into it, the more we realized that we also had suffered from it at some point. It was such a massive eye-opener for me as well. Some days after some of the conversation that we would have on Facebook, I wasn't able to sort of like sleep or switch off. Some of the things that I got that were discussed sort of like haunted me in a way. Some of them were really, really deep and emotional. And I mean, coming from Nigeria, you find it really difficult for men to come out and speak up about being sexually abused or anything like that. But there were men who came up and wanted to have that conversation because of how we've approached the conversation. And it was just a massive eye-opener for the need for us to do something, to, even if it's one person that we are able to help doing this process. I mean, it would be a great thing, wouldn't it? It would be one less person who is being, tortured the way, because I see it as torture, and so I'm glad that we actually picked mental health this year, but it's been a struggle. It's been a heavy one getting to this point, but I'm glad we did it. So, Chi, if you just, tell us your name. how you got involved, and just your view on the video that we've just watched as well. Yeah, that'd be great.
Okay, my name is Chinos. Yes, like Rosemary mentioned, we've been there like day one, talking about the whole charity thing, and this year being actually a special one for me, I would say. The mental health thing is affecting everyone, and it was actually an eye-opener that every Dick and Harry, I would say, has suffered. If you haven't suffered...
You forgot Tom.
And Tom, yeah. Tom, yeah. If you haven't... I knew you would do that. Yeah. Everyone has suffered, both men, women, children, and it has nothing, no discrimination. Everyone has suffered. If you haven't suffered, you know someone that is going through it. And so when Caroline said, okay, this year we're talking about it, I'm like, oh, how are we going to go about this? You know, no one is going to, come out to talk about it. And actually, as time goes on, people are now coming. And then I was actually curious watching it. I would say, who's talking today? What are they saying? And then I find out there's men actually coming in as well. I'm like, what are they coming to say? And once they start opening up, I'm like, wow, men full of egos, and they're letting their guard down to talk about how they're abused, and, or maybe their wife or their children, they're going through, they know someone, and they're actually getting affected by what another person is going through in the house. So I can relate that because I've been through it as well. And although I didn't go through like Nicole, like being section or anything, you could go there if you're not kind of strong. You could go that way if you let. But I was, in a way, thank God, touch wood, that I have friends and family that kind of helped me in a way. I spoke up. I speak up, and I tell them what, and that's what helped me a lot. Speaking up, because once you tell somebody, this is what I'm going through. Mine was related like divorce. I went through a horrible divorce, and through the divorce, it started with domestic violence. So once I spoke up, it kind of helped me, because I wasn't ashamed again. Because first of all, I did bottle up what was going through behind closed door. I heard it, and like, okay, people will not believe me, or I will be ashamed, something like that stigma again, that